All right, guys, we're going to jump back into our foundational skills for Algebra 2 before we jump into the first section of Chapter 1. This is Part 2. So let's take a look at number 15. This is where we are, 15. All right, so we're comparing using our inequality symbols less than or greater than. So negative 0.38, is it less than or greater than negative 0.3? So for negatives, the number farther from 0, or in other words, the larger absolute value, will be the smaller number. So which has a larger absolute value, 0.38 or 0.3? We can think of that as 0.30, 0.38. Which one would be further away? 0.38 as an absolute value would be further away from 0. And we can think of this as, for example, are you more in debt if you owe 30 cents or more in debt if you owe 38 cents, for example? Because negatives can be thought of as, for example, debt in the real world is one real world context. So negative 0.38 is less than negative 0.3. Negative 0.3. Let's go to 16. Negative 15/8 compared to negative 2. So we'll want to convert negative 15/8 to a decimal first. So let's divide 15 by 8. And when we divide that on the calculator here, we'll get 1.875. So we'll want to attach that negative symbol there as well. Negative 1.875 is now being compared to negative 2. And again, we go back to absolute value, which one is further away from from 0. All right, so negative 1.875 versus negative 2. Negative 2 is further away from 0 as absolute value, so it will be less than as far as negatives are concerned. So we'll go ahead and draw that inequality symbol facing the greater number here. So negative 1.875 is greater than negative 2, or negative 15/8 is greater than negative 2. All right, let's go to our next section here, 17 through 20. We're practicing with order of operations. You may remember PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's where we're headed here with our order of operations. So we'll take a look here at 17. 14 divided by 2 times negative 3 plus 1. Now we're working from left to right. And with our division and multiplication, they have equal priority as we go from left to right. So whichever we run into first. So we're looking for division and multiplication here. And they do have equal priority. So for example, we'll be looking at 14 divided by 2. If it had been a multiplication first, then we would be multiplying because we do them in order. We do them at the same time as we go from left to right, I mean. So 14 divided by 2, and then what is that result times negative 3, right? So 7 times negative 3, because multiplication is next, will give us negative 21 plus 1, which brings us to negative 20. Okay, let's take a look at 18. Here we have an exponent. The E and PEMDAS are exponents. 8 squared minus negative 12 plus 15 divided by 3. So let's evaluate the exponent first. 8 squared is 8 times 8, or 64. Now we're ready to write out the rest. Let's go ahead and keep it written all together so we don't get confused. I tell students just go ahead and rewrite everything as you go. Minus negative 12 plus 15 divided by 3. Okay. Now we're ready to go in order here. What do we have? We have subtraction, addition, and division. So let's go ahead and divide, because in PEMDAS, the M and the D come first, multiplication and division, right? Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Now addition and subtraction also will be done at the same time from left to right. But division comes first. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. Let's bring everything up. 64 minus negative 12 plus 5 now. And now we can go from left to right with whichever comes first, addition or subtraction. In this case, it's subtraction. We have 64 minus negative 12. So let's go ahead and change that to adding the opposite, because that's what subtraction is, adding the opposite. So we can add the, and then we need to change this sign, whatever it is, to add the opposite. In this case, it's a negative, so let's change that to a positive. 64 plus 12 plus 5 now. 64 plus 12 plus 5 gives us 81. 81 is our answer for number 18. Okay, let's take a look at 19. Now, in this parentheses, we actually have an operation. So we'll want to work the what's inside the parentheses first as we are evaluating this. So let's go ahead and subtract 21 from 25. This will give us 4. And we want to attach the exponent there and go ahead and bring everything down. This brings us to negative 2 times 4 squared plus 11. Now 4 squared is 4 times 4, or 16. So now we have negative 2 times 16 plus 11. With PEMDAS, we are going to be multiplying first. So let's multiply negative 2 times 16, and then add that to 11. Negative 2 times 16 will give us negative 32, and then we'll add 11. Now, with the negatives and positives, 1 for 1 cancels. 1 for 1. So think of it as you owe $32, and now you paid 11 of that debt off, for example, if we're looking for a real-world context here. So this will be subtraction. Another way I tell students to think about it is, first of all, change it to an addition problem. Add the opposite if you need to. Here we're already at an addition problem. And then simply subtract the smaller integer from the larger integer. I mean without the sign. So take the signs away and just think of 32 and 11, right? And then you'll attach the symbol of the or the sign of the larger number. So for example, here we have 32 negatives versus 11 positives, so we know it's going to be a negative number. So 32 minus 11 is 21, and we'll attach that negative sign there to get to negative 21 for our answer. Okay, let's try number 20, a little more challenging. Now on this one, we do want to work from the innermost grouping outward. So let's go ahead and start with 21 minus 9 divided by 6. So 21 minus 9 will give us 12. And then 12 divided by 6 will give us 2. And now we can bring everything down. 3 times 2 minus 1. We don't want to forget that minus 1 is still there. Divided by 2. Let's continue to evaluate. We want to multiply 3 by what's in the parentheses first here. 2 minus 1 will be 1. So 3 times 1 divided by 2 will be 3 divided by 2, or 3 halves. 3 halves is our answer for number 20. Now let's go to our last section here before we jump into the first section of Chapter 1. These are our foundational skills. These are ordered pairs. So we're going to the coordinate plane here. Now in coordinate geometry, we combine algebra and geometry together. That's why it's covered in Algebra 2. Also partly in Algebra 1, right? Also partly in class since 5th grade. That's when you first started learning about coordinate. The coordinate grid and the coordinate plane. That begins really in 5th grade math. All right, so here we're just going in our first brush up here to make sure that we remember what it is. We're going to just graph each point on the coordinate plane, right? So let's go ahead and begin with 0, 2. So for each ordered pair, the first coordinate tells us where to move horizontally from the origin, and the second coordinate tells us where to move vertically, because the pair, in the pair, order matters, right? It goes X, Y. All right, here's our X-axis. As a refresher, here's our Y-axis, so we can remember which direction we're going in and where we start. All right, so we're going to walk through each point here. Let's begin with 0, 2. All right, so 0, here we're at the origin, right? And then just go up to 2. Okay, what about -3, 1? If we want to, it says to use the same coordinate plane, sure. -3, 1, how would we do that? That's x, right? -3, start at our origin. 1, 2, 3, hops, and then up 1, okay? And then 2, -1 was the next one. We'll just keep plotting this on the same grid, why not? 2, -1, so we're going up, hop, hop, right? I should say over, not up, but hop, hop, over to the right. And then we're going down -1, down to -1 here. Okay, and then we have, our last one is -3, -2. So we'll start our origin again. Let's go back 1, 2, 3, but then down to here. All right, there we go. Now if we connect them together, we'll have what looks like a bit of a parallelogram here. But there are our 4 points. And we can label those. Here is 0, 2. Here is -3, 1. 2, -1. And our last one is -3, -2. As we're double checking those to make sure we got those correct. All right, and that will be a point in each of our quadrants, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. Let's continue on now. In our next video, we're going to jump straight into the first section of Chapter 1 of Algebra 2. This is the full Algebra 2 course. See you soon.